First contact fallout. Maya Chen knew she wasn't supposed to be here. The safety protocols were clear about uncharted planets. Observe from orbit, send drones, analyze data, then consider a landing party if conditions were suitable. But suitable rarely meant safe, as the distress beacon's frantic pulsing reminded her. We're breaking at least 17 regulations, Xandar commented, his 4 arms working simultaneously across the shuttle's control panel. The Traxian's skin rippled with blue stress patterns. Captain Velka will have our positions for this. Maya adjusted her environment suit and checked her translator module one last time. Regulations don't account for lives at risk. That beacon's been active for 6 days. If anyone's alive down there, they won't be for much longer. The third member of their impromptu rescue party, a Solarian named Ket, shifted nervously in the corner. His crystalline form refracted light across the shuttle's interior. The human is correct. Our ethical directives supersede standard protocols in emergency situations. Xandar made a clicking sound with his mandibles that Maya had come to recognize as reluctant agreement. Nexus 7 station won't send backup if things go wrong. We're on our own. Then we'd better not need backup, Maya replied, looking through the viewport as they descended through swirling crimson clouds. The planet, designated only as X-42 in their charts, wasn't supposed to be inhabited. Initial scans had detected no artificial structures, no radio signals, no signs of technological civilization. Yet someone had crashed here and managed to activate an emergency beacon. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, revealing a landscape that took Maya's breath away. Massive crystal formations jutted from the ground like skyscrapers, their translucent surfaces shimmering with internal light. Between them stretched forests of what looked like metallic vegetation, swaying despite the absence of wind. Atmosphere is toxic, Xandar announced. High levels of chlorine compounds. Suits required at all times. Signal source is 2 kilometers ahead, Ket added, his voice resonating through the shuttle's communication system. I'm detecting an energy signature consistent with a Galatian transport vessel. Maya frowned. Galatians? They rarely venture this far from their home systems. The shuttle settled on a relatively flat expanse of rust-colored soil. Through her helmet, Maya could hear the patter of corrosive rain beginning to fall against the shuttle's exterior. The droplets sizzled where they landed on the ground. Movement Protocol Alpha, Xandar instructed. Stay within visual range, maintain comm links, and for the sake of all stars, don't touch anything. They exited the shuttle in formation, their environment suits designed to withstand brief exposure to hostile conditions. Maya's training kicked in as she scanned their surroundings, noting possible hazards and escape routes. The crashed ship is just beyond that crystal formation, Ket said, pointing toward a particularly large structure that rose like a cathedral spire from the landscape. As they approached, the damage became visible. The Galatian ship had plowed through several crystal formations before coming to rest at an angle half buried in the metallic vegetation. Its hull was cracked open like an egg, exposing internal components to the corrosive atmosphere. Life signs? Maya asked, reaching for her scanner. Xandar was already working with his more advanced equipment. None aboard the vessel, but there's something strange. Biological readings scattered in a radius around the crash site. Not Galatian. Survivors who abandoned ship, Ket suggested. Maya approached the vessel cautiously. The distress beacon is still active. Someone must have. She stopped abruptly as something moved within the ship. The others tensed, reaching for their defensive tools. Maya raised a hand, signaling them to wait. From the darkened interior emerged a small, hovering sphere no larger than Maya's fist. It pulsed with soft blue light and emitted a series of musical tones. A messenger drone, Xandar identified. Galatian design. The sphere approached Maya directly, hovering before her visor. A holographic message flickered to life between them, displaying a Galatian's elongated face contorted with urgency. To whoever finds this message, we were attacked. The native species. We thought they were non-sentient, but they're organized. They're defending something. We discovered. Static interrupted the message. Mining operation unauthorized, but the crystals contain. More static. Being hunted. The cargo must be protected at all costs. The consequences. The message cut off entirely. The sphere retreated back into the ship, leaving them in silence. We need to see what they were transporting. Maya decided, moving toward the ship's cargo hold. That would be unwise, Ket cautioned. If they were attacked by native life forms, then we need to know why, Maya finished, already climbing through the damaged hull. Inside, the acrid smell of burned circuitry penetrated even her suit's filtration systems. The cargo hold was mostly intact, sealed by emergency protocols. Maya overrode the security with her universal access codes, technically only for emergency use, another regulation broken. The doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing rows of containment pods. Most were damaged, but 3 remained intact, their status lights blinking steadily. Biological specimens, Xandar observed, following Maya inside. The Galatians were collecting samples. Maya approached the nearest pod and wiped condensation from its surface. What she saw inside made her step back in shock. A creature curled within the transparent fluid, its body covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid light. It was roughly humanoid, but with elongated limbs that ended in delicate, crystalline appendages. Its face was featureless except for 2 large, opalescent eyes. "It's alive," she whispered, "and it's watching us." The creature uncurled slightly, pressing a hand against the interior of the pod. The patterns on its skin intensified, forming complex geometric shapes that pulsed rhythmically. "It's trying to communicate," Maya realized. She turned to her companions. "We need to release it." "Absolutely not," Xandar objected. "We don't know what it is or what happened here. For all we know, these creatures killed the Galatian crew." Maya studied the being more carefully. "Look at the restraints inside the pod. It's not a dangerous specimen. It's a prisoner. The Galatians were abducting these beings." Ket moved closer, his crystalline form resonating subtly. "The patterns, they're similar to the formations outside. These creatures are connected to the planet's structure somehow." A distant sound caught their attention, a high-pitched keening that seemed to come from all directions at once. The crystals around them vibrated in response. "We should return to the shuttle," Xandar urged. "Whatever is coming." "No," Maya interrupted. "We're not leaving them here." She began working on the pod's release mechanism, her fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls. "Maya, this is beyond our mission parameters," Xandar insisted. "We came to check for survivors, not to interfere in." The pod hissed open before he could finish, releasing a cloud of preservative fluid. The creature inside remained still for a moment, then slowly rose to a standing position. It was taller than Maya had estimated, nearly 2 meters in height. Up close, the patterns on its skin were even more mesmerizing. Shifting, flowing matrices of light that seemed to respond to her presence. The keening sound grew louder. Through the ship's broken hull, they could see movement in the forest of metallic vegetation, dozens of similar creatures approaching cautiously. "You've endangered us all," Xandar said, backing toward the exit. But Maya stood her ground, removing her translator module and holding it before her. The device was designed to analyze pattern-based communication across species boundaries. If these beings communicated through the light displays on their skin. The creature reached out, not for the translator, but for Maya's gloved hand. When contact was made, the patterns on its skin surged across the material of her suit, crawling up her arm in mesmerizing waves. "It's attempting direct information transfer," Ket observed with fascination. Maya remained still, allowing the connection. Her translator began to pulse in synchronization with the patterns, attempting to decode the information. "They're called the lumina," she said slowly, as the translator began to form conceptual linkages. They're not just native to this planet. They are the planet. The crystals, the patterns, it's all connected. The Galatians discovered that the crystals can be harvested and used as an incredibly powerful energy source. The creature, the Lumina, stepped closer, its patterns intensifying. They want to know if we've come to take more of them. Maya continued, interpreting the flowing lights. The Galatians captured several of their kind before their ship was disabled. Outside, the approaching Lumina had reached the crash site. They surrounded the ship, their combined light patterns creating a mesmerizing display that made the entire area pulse with energy. "Tell them we're here to help," Ket suggested, his own crystalline form beginning to resonate with their patterns. Maya attempted to communicate this through the translator, but the device sparked and shut down, overwhelmed by the complexity of the signals. The Lumina before her tilted its featureless head, then reached both hands toward Maya's helmet. Before Xandar could intervene, it touched the visor with its crystalline fingertips. Maya gasped as images flooded her mind directly. A civilization living in harmony with the crystal formations, drawing energy and sustenance from them. The arrival of the Galatian ship, the violent abduction of several Lumina, and finally, a hunting party dispatched to stop the invaders. "They're not the hunters," Maya said, her voice strained. "There's something else coming. Something that protects them." As if summoned by her words, the ground beneath the ship began to tremble. The metallic vegetation parted to reveal a massive crystalline form rising from below, a guardian entity awakened by the distress of its charges. The Lumina around them began to retreat, pulling the freed captive along with them. The one connected to Maya tried to tug her away as well, but she hesitated. "We need to free the others," she insisted, turning back toward the remaining pods. "There's no time," Xandar warned, as the ship groaned around them. "That thing will crush us all." Through the broken hull, Maya could see the enormous guardian approaching, a living crystal formation with appendages that could easily tear the ship apart. The Lumina were communicating with it, their patterns flashing urgently, but it continued its advance. "It doesn't recognize us as different from the Galatians," Maya realized. "We need to establish contact." The Lumina tugged at her again, its patterns forming what Maya now recognized as a warning. Time was running out. The human element. The guardian entity towered over the crashed Galatian vessel, crystalline limbs poised to strike. Maya had seconds to make a decision. Retreat with her companions or attempt something unprecedented. "Get to the shuttle," she ordered Xandar and Ket. "Be ready for emergency departure." "What are you planning?" Xandar demanded, but Maya was already moving back toward the cargo hold. The two remaining containment pods held Lumina in suspended animation. Maya worked quickly, overriding the security protocols as the ship groaned around her. The Guardian's massive form cast prismatic shadows through the hull breach. "I need your help," she said to the Lumina that had established contact with her. Its patterns flickered in what she interpreted as hesitation. Then it approached the pods and placed its crystalline hands on the surfaces. The pods responded to its touch, systems activating and release sequences initiating. Within moments, the captives were free, their weak light patterns gradually strengthening as they regained consciousness. The ship lurched violently as the Guardian struck a glancing blow. Maya stumbled but kept her footing. "We need to leave now." She led the three Lumina toward the exit, where Xandar waited impatiently. "The shuttle's powered up," he reported, "but that thing will tear it apart before we can achieve escape velocity." Outside, the Guardian had positioned itself between them and their shuttle. Dozens of Lumina surrounded it, their patterns flashing in complex sequences that Maya recognized as attempts to communicate, but the massive entity seemed fixated on the intruders. "It's protecting them," Maya said, studying the Guardian's movements. "It doesn't understand that we freed the captives. It only sees us as threats." Ket, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly stepped forward. "Perhaps I can help." His crystalline body began to resonate at a frequency that made Maya's teeth ache inside her helmet. My species evolved from similar silicon-based structures. There may be compatibility. Before anyone could stop him, Ket approached the Guardian, his form shimmering with increasing intensity. The massive entity paused, its attention shifting to this new phenomenon. "What is he doing?" Sandar hissed. "Creating a distraction," Maya replied, grabbing his arm. "We need to move, now." They circled wide around the Guardian, guiding the freed Lumina toward the shuttle. The native beings followed reluctantly, their patterns displaying what Maya interpreted as concern for their colossal protector. When they reached the shuttle, Maya hesitated. "We can't leave Ket." Xandar was already at the controls. He made his choice. "That thing will destroy us all if we stay." The Guardian was now completely focused on Ket, who stood motionless before it. Their crystalline structures seemed to be interacting, complex patterns of light flowing between them. "He's communicating," Maya realized. "He's telling it what happened." The Lumina they had rescued approached the shuttle's viewport, their patterns forming sequences that her damaged translator couldn't process. But Maya understood the sentiment. They wouldn't abandon their defender. "Give me 5 minutes," she told Sandar, reaching for her equipment pack. "For what? What can you possibly do that Ket isn't already attempting?" Maya pulled out an emergency beacon identical to the one that had led them here. "If one signal brought us, maybe another will tell that thing we're different from the Galatians." She quickly modified the beacon's transmission frequency, setting it to broadcast on a pattern that matched the rhythmic pulses she'd observed in the luminous communication. It was improvisation based on limited understanding. Exactly the kind of adaptive thinking humans were known for. "This is suicide," Sandar objected as she moved toward the shuttle's hatch. "No," Maya corrected. "This is anthropology." She stepped outside, the modified beacon clutched in her hands. The Guardian was still engaged with Ket, who appeared to be struggling to maintain the connection. His crystalline form showed signs of strain, microfractures appearing across his surface. Maya activated the beacon, which began emitting pulses of light in patterns similar to those used by the Lumina. She approached slowly, holding the device before her like an offering. The Guardian's attention shifted, massive crystalline sensors orienting toward the new signal. Maya froze, heart pounding as the colossal entity analyzed her presence. Behind it, Ket collapsed to the ground, his form dimming. The Lumina they had rescued emerged from the shuttle, moving to stand beside Maya. Their patterns synchronized with the beacon's pulses, creating a complex harmony of light and meaning. Gradually, the Guardian lowered its imposing limbs. The hostile posture relaxed as it processed the combined signals. Maya remained motionless, every muscle tense with anticipation. Then, in a gesture that seemed impossible for such a massive entity, the Guardian bent forward until its central core, a nexus of crystalline structures that Maya assumed served as its sensory apparatus, was directly before her. It emitted a pulse of energy that temporarily overloaded her suit's systems. When the display cleared, Maya found herself surrounded by a three-dimensional projection, a history of the luminous civilization, their symbiotic relationship with the planet, and the arrival of the Galatians who had begun harvesting crystals without understanding their connection to the living beings. "They're not just crystals," Maya whispered, comprehension dawning. "They're eggs. Infant Lumina in developmental stasis." The Guardian confirmed with another pulse that resonated through her bones. The Galatians had been harvesting their young as energy sources. Maya turned toward the shuttle, where Xandar watched in astonishment. "We need to report this to Nexus 7. The entire sector needs to be placed under protection status." One of the Lumina approached, its patterns forming what Maya now recognized as an expression of gratitude. It touched her helmet again, establishing the strange mental connection. "You understand where others only take," came the impression in her mind. "The bright ones thought our crystals merely resources. You saw us as beings." "It's what humans do," Maya answered simply. "We look for the story behind the surface." With Ket's help, his form weakened but stable, They established a rudimentary communication protocol between the Lumina and their translator systems. The Guardian remained watchful but no longer hostile, allowing them to return to the shuttle and retrieve medical supplies for the rescued captives. The Galatians will return, Sandar pointed out as they prepared to depart. They already know about the energy potential of these crystals. Then we'll be waiting, Maya replied, inputting coordinates for Nexus 7. I'll petition the Galactic Council for immediate protected status for this planet. Based on what? A single first contact incident with no official sanction. Maya smiled. Based on verified evidence of a sentient species with advanced communication capabilities and a complex social structure. The regulations are quite clear about that. As the shuttle lifted off, the Lumina gathered below, their patterns forming a dazzling farewell display that lit up the landscape. The Guardian stood among them, its massive form now a protector rather than a threat. Ket, recovering in the shuttle's medical bay, observed Maya with newfound respect. You risked everything to save beings you had just met. Isn't that why we're out here? Maya countered. To find new life, new civilizations, not to exploit them, but to understand them. Xandar made that clicking sound again, reluctant agreement. Captain Velka will still have our positions for breaking protocol. Maybe, Maya admitted, or maybe she'll recognize that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when we're willing to step beyond what we think we know. She glanced back at the diminishing view of the crystal planet. That's the human element in all this. We're not the strongest or the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but we're really good at making connections where others see only resources. As the shuttle breached the atmosphere and set course for Nexus 7, Maya began composing her report. It would be controversial, recommending sanctions against the Galatians and immediate protected status for X-42. But she had evidence now, and more importantly, witnesses. The universe was full of wonders that couldn't be measured in terms of energy yield or resource potential. Sometimes it took a human perspective to see the difference between what could be taken and what should be preserved. And sometimes that made all the difference in the galaxy.